In this video and the subsequent videos to follow, I'm going to be discussing and displaying examples through models for the construction of the Great Pyramids at Giza. What you see on the screen are points of discussion for the examples to be shown. Every stone, movement, and placement will be accounted for, from the corners, sides, middle stones, and all the chambers. By the end, you should have a clear understanding of how the pyramids at Giza were constructed, as well as any other megalithic building ever created. Let's get started. Here we can see the raw materials we're going to be working with. We're going to be using rope. We're going to be using square beams of different sizes and lengths. We're going to be using rollers of different sizes and lengths. We're going to be using rocks in order to counterweight, in order to move the stones. And we're going to be using bricks to represent the different sizes and shapes of stones. Here we see our first example of the apparatus or rack that we're going to be using in order to move the stone. In this case, dragging the stone. The rack is comprised of two components. It's a pull rack and a swing rack. Here we're set up with the lines in place around the stone in order to pull, and the crates that are on the pull and the swing rack. The swing rack is going to be pushing the stone. And from here, all you have to do is start adding the weight. Either of these can be used individually, but in this case we're using both. In most cases we're going to be using both a swing and pull rack simultaneously. And there's our first movement. Not quite all the way, so we're going to pour a little bit more into the swing rack, and that completes the movement. Next we're going to be using the pull rack in order to create lift. Of course you would remove the weight in order to release the tension on the lines. The stone is braced with a small beam. Weight is added to the pull rack, or in this case it could be considered a lift rack. And once adequate weight is added, you get lift. Here we're going to be using rollers to move the stone into place. It moves, it falls off the rollers, and then you can add weight to the pull rack or the lift rack in order to be able to remove the rollers. These are going to be the basic principles that we're going to be using all the way throughout the pyramid construction. Of course, once it is lifted up, it's possible to remove weight from the crate and then have a team of workers once remove the weight, they can lift the crate in order to softly lower the stone. This small model will be used as a reference throughout the videos. This is how it will look once every stone is in place. As you can see, the corners are unfinished. The use of the unfinished corners will be necessary in order to support the racks used for setting the cornerstones. They will be shaved down once the pyramid is complete. This is going to be corner 4, or the lift corner. The corner directly across from it is corner 1. The other ones are corners 2 and 3. Each corner is going to have a different method for setting the stone. I do have a method that will work without using unfinished stones that will be discussed at the end of the videos. Here's the first rack we'll be working with, the corner lift rack. All side, middle, and corner stones will be lifted using this rack. The largest stones, such as the ones found in the King and Queen's chamber, will be lifted using a different method that will be shown later. In order for this rack to work, it must be placed at the corner of the pyramid. Every level or layer will be completed in its entirety before starting the next layer. There will be 2 lift racks facing each other for every 2 layers of the pyramid completed. In other words, we will be skipping a layer for each lifted stone. Before showing how this rack works, here's an example of what I mean by skipping layers using the small model for reference. So here we can see we have 2 layers already finished. We have the 2 lift racks set in place. And you can see how we're skipping a layer here. We're going to use the lift racks to lift these all the way up to the second layer, to begin the third layer. And we'll be showing exactly how these lift racks do that in just a second. First, I just wanted to make clear exactly what I mean by skipping levels and how that works exactly. How you don't skip levels every time. Like in this part of the reference right here, you can see the third layer is complete, and we won't be skipping a level. We just use the second set of lift racks that are set up to get it into place. Now we have 4 layers complete, and we'll be able to begin the 5th layer using the same 4 lift racks that are set up. And this is going to continue all the way to the top of the pyramid. As you can see, it would just move according like that, and I'm going to show you right now in our example with the real model how that works. Here we have the corner lift rack. This is the rack that's going to be bringing up every stone except for the largest stones used in the Queen's Chamber, King's Chamber, and the entrance, but all the cornerstones and all the main middle stones. So here we have the rollers. We're going to be showing how we're going to get the stones on the rollers in a little bit, but we're going to have the stone imported in via the rollers. Here we have a little backstop. We're going to put it behind there. Roll the stone into place. Remove these rollers. And we're going to set up for lift number 1. We're going to use a round beam in order to brace the stone. Here we have the lift rack. There, the stone moved back a little bit, didn't lift yet. It's going to need a little bit more weight. And there we go. First lift. We're going to set this bar right here, and then we're going to put some support beams underneath it. And here's what it'll look like. Set up for lift number 2. This segment of the video is going to be a little bit repetitive, but I wanted to show every lift in its entirety. Once there was enough weight, workers would use a swing rack to push on it, or you could have weight on the swing rack. Workers could have rope set up so they pull on it. Basically, you would want a smooth pull, but since we can't use a smooth pull, or since I would like to show you it done hands-free, we're going to use this little brace right here. That way we don't get a harsh smack as the stone comes up. We're just going to get a half lift. And there we have it, the half lift. Which again, this isn't going to be used by the Egyptians. They wouldn't need to do it. They would just use the workers. That way they could get a good smooth lifting of the stone. But we're going to do the process step by step here. So you put the support beam, and then you remove the weight and set it up for the other half lift. We've removed the bottom brace, reset the lift rack, and add weight again. And there we have it. That's what the lift looks like. Lift number 2. We get another support beam to support the support beams. And we use a round one as the first one just because it helps to reduce drag. The ones that I'm setting behind it are all flat. And here we are set up for lift number 3. Again, I apologize for the repetitiveness of it. Once again, we're going to be using another brace underneath. And another half lift on lift number 3. Add your support beams. And now that we got that set up, here we go for the completion of lift number 3. Add our final support beam there. Same way. You'll notice that I have the strings lined up on the front top part of the stones. It's definitely possible because we're always moving the stones in on rollers that you could get the ropes underneath the stone, which would definitely help it lift up, but because the bricks grip so well, I just went with the front just to show for the examples. And here we are, we're done with the final lift. And now we're going to do things a little different now that's lifted all the way to the top. So we're going to put support beams, flat support beams, all the way across in order to create a nice flat surface. And can you guess what I'm going to do next? If you can, good job. Because what I'm about to do is the trick, one of the main tricks really, to make the lift rack work correctly. Now that the stone is lifted like that, we have our little platform. Put the rollers underneath. And I'm sure now you can know exactly how we're going to do it. The rollers are set up. I'm going to put that same backstop to make sure the stone gets set in its proper place. You then remove the weight. The stone falls onto the rollers. Now, this is another advantage with skipping levels, is you have your team that can work up right there. Another advantage with the corner as well is they have a perfect angle. You can get ropes and you can get them around the stone so you can pull on it nicely on the rollers. The platform is set up for the workers right there. Technically, you could actually set up a pole rack behind it too, but I don't think that's necessary at all. And the stone moves into place, and there you have it, the completion and how every stone was lifted on. So now we're going to be showing how to get the cornerstones lifted. It's the exact same method, and in fact, to lift the cornerstone, the unfinished cornerstone, takes roughly the same amount of weight as it does for me to get the rectangular shaped stone to lift. Now you see I'm using bricks here on this part. Throughout the video and the next videos, I'm going to be using bricks much more often than I'm using the small stones of pouring. Just saves me time. It's all the same in the end. To get the stone on its side, or rather on its bottom, so that it's flat and ready to be set into the corner, there's a little trick we're going to do here. We're going to lift it the same. Now I'm using this little box. So it would be using really like the same type of platforms and beams as we did in the last one. That's how it would really be done, but I just made this little box here just to save time. You can see the box is a little bit lower than the edge. This is important because that's going to help trip the stone in order to get it flat on its side. And I'm going to show you the little trick that we're going to use to do that. So we're going to set up some rollers for the stone to lay down on. You get the stone lifted, you get it into its position. And here's where the little trick comes in. We have a crate, and we're gonna string the rope across the top of the stone. You add weight to the crate. Doesn't take that much. Workers would then use ropes to pull, or you'd use a pull rack more likely, or both. And with the pull rack or with the workers, it rolls, it goes into its first position. Workers would then, you'd switch the ropes so it'd be pulling on the bottom of the stone, and then it would go onto the rollers as such. And you remove the weight, roll the stone, and get it ready to set up for its setting into the corner.